Welcome, creators, to The Disruptors, Illuminate Your Frequency podcast. It's in the disruption of the luminescence that matter is created. Yep, it's another video podcast. So last week was the first week that I didn't actually have a podcast. And that's because I was sick, and I normally don't get sick, and I had no capabilities of being able to record a podcast. And I'm not someone who backs them all up and has them all lined up and has them all ready and scheduled or does them before time. With me, my podcasts are always on the fly. They're always on the day, sometimes the day before, but normally on the day. I like to keep it fresh with whatever the information is and allow whatever's coming through to come through, and whatever I want to say be able to be said in that moment. So last week was the first time that I had no podcast. I was like, oh no, it's the end of the world. But it's not. Of course not. But I'm here this week, and today I'm going to talk about something that I'm calling 120 days. I was listening to someone the other day talking about how different parts of our body regenerate. The cells in our body, with our skin, our nails, our blood cells, regenerate every 120 days. That means that it's brand new. Our skin is different skin to what it was 120 days. Our blood is different to what it was 120 days ago. And it was quite fascinating to think about, well, then how does everything else regenerate? And I did a little bit of research, not much, but a little bit to see. And obviously everything's different. Our bones regenerate, our organs regenerate, our muscles regenerate. Everything is constantly moving and changing. It's always regenerating. It's always becoming something new. It's always changing, and makes sense. That is my main philosophy on everything, is that we do have to constantly change. We do have to constantly grow. We can't sit here and be stuck. But the thing that I got from hearing that was then, well, if we are regenerating and if we are becoming something new, then why are we still the same? Why do we still look the same? Why do we still hold the same beliefs? Why are we still doing the same things? Why is our body reacting or doing things that it has always done? And I don't have the answer for that, unfortunately. But it was just interesting to think about, well, then if we have that possibility of thinking that these things are regenerating 120 days, well, then that's going to be my basis for me to regenerate my own things. And yes, we do change over time. And yes, if we look back at ourselves, not just 120 days ago, but maybe 120 months ago. Now that's too many. But if we go back and look at ourselves a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, we've obviously changed. And it's not something that's so obvious or something that's so different. Yes, there are ways we can do some dramatic changes pretty instantly, but most of the things that we are working on and that we work towards, and the things that we change into, or the person that we become, or the way that we react, or the way that our body is doing certain things, happens over a period of time. So when we are trying to get healthy, that doesn't happen overnight. If we're trying to lose weight or build muscle, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that happens progressively over a period of time. Same as if we're changing our thoughts on things, if we're healing our old wounds, if we're feeling pain or we're feeling anger or we're moving through a situation or an experience, it takes time to get over it. And if we apply that 120-day principle to it, well, then now I'm in this experimental idea thought bubble process of, I'm going to apply that whole theory then to everything. If I can create my own 120-day way to create something new, then it has to be different on the end of that 120 day. If I start from where I am right now, whatever it is, you can use this for any topic, whether it's your mindset, whether it's the way your body looks, whether it's the way you speak, the way you act, the things you're doing, whatever it is. If you start at this point right now and you apply 120 days of doing something different in order to change whatever that original thing is into something else, what's that going to look like at the end of 120 days? I can pretty much guarantee it's not going to be exactly the same. Even if you don't get to your goal, even if you have a specific goal or a specific outcome, it may not get there in that 120 days. But if you're applying whatever it is you need to apply to that 120-day process over that 120 days, something is going to be different. So I'm now deciding that every 120 days, something is different, something has changed, something can be more enjoyable, it can be better experience, it can be more of what I want it to be. So I'm now using a 120-day principle as a basis for the way that I promote and offer the things in my businesses now. So one of the things I'm working on at the moment is Creator Codes, which is an online learning portal for people to learn how to use and express things in digital media and onto new platforms and whatever it is, whether it's a course, an offer, a workshop, whatever you were trying to offer. So I'm applying my 120-day principle to that because it's starting in under 2 weeks. But I have set it up so the first 12 weeks are 12 different weeks of learning something new. And then we have the integration process to allow all the things that we learn to sort of permeate and see how they expand into the things that we're learning and the things that we're growing, the things that we want to create and put out there. Because I'm using the whole principle myself in thinking, okay, well, if that's 12 weeks, of course, that's not 120 days, but we're adding those days on the end to allow us to implement them. So if you're starting here and you're learning all these new things, and then you're applying these new things, you are different at the end of that 120 days, regardless. Even if you haven't created or made that thing that you wanted to make at the end of it, you are in a different position because you may have learned something. Whether it was how to do something, maybe you unlocked something yourself of new knowledge or a new awareness, or maybe you decided that you thought that you wanted to go do this thing, but now after learning and seeing how different things work online, you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to do that. Or maybe the original plan that you had now changes because you have all this new information. So you are still different in that 120 days, whether you like it or not. Because if our whole body can regenerate itself, if it's constantly changing and constantly growing and expanding, that means we have to as well. And part of this video that I heard, it's, well, that's part of the degradation of our body as well, is because of when those cells are regenerating, because they keep doing it over and over and over and over again. That's what causes us to eventually start to deteriorate with age, because it's constantly doing the same thing. It's like looking at it of, you know, some sort of a machinery or a car. If you had a brand new car and you had a car that's 25 years old, which one's going to function better? Yeah, we can argue about that. The older ones might be made a little bit better, but we know that the newer ones are going to be working more efficiently because they're not constantly doing whatever it is that they need to do. And that's the same with our body. So even though we are regenerating, there can be some form of us not being at our peak for as long as we wanted to. That does not mean we need to give up and think, oh, I'm too old, it's too hard. It's not. We're just going to change the process. We're just going to apply a whole new mindset towards it. Like, you could even use that as a 120-day process of thinking, oh, I'm getting older. That just means my body's going to get weaker and my muscles are going to deteriorate and I'm going to get gray hair and I'm going to move slower and my joints are going to hurt. You could use that 120-day principle and change your mindset from that to thinking, no, I'm as youthful as I am 10 years old. And that's just a mindset shift. And what happens is once you start slipping into this new mindset, the rest of your world is going to react to the way of how you were thinking, what you were believing right now. Because it's, what do they say about creating a new habit? Isn't it if you do it for 3 weeks, it becomes a habit. And how do we not know that just that sentence is a belief that we're holding on to, that we have created to allow ourselves to believe if I can do something for 3 weeks, then that means I can continue to do it. I can continue to make that change. So what could you change in 120 days? Like, for me, things move pretty quickly. I learn new things. I create new things pretty quickly. So going back 120 days is probably a lot of different things that happen in that time. But what could you change in 120 days? If there is something that you are trying to change, or something that you're interested in creating, or something that you want to put out there, or something new that you want to do, maybe just try it for 120 days. Just set up something that works for you, where you are doing something every single day. And even if that is just a thought change, even if it's just saying a different sentence every day, then you can look back and go, okay, I did that for 120 days. What changed? If anything, something is going to change, because we know that there's physically part of you that will change in that time. Your blood changes, your skin changes, your nails change. So why can't we do some of the other things as well? I feel like there's a challenge coming. I feel like I want to create one with accountability. Because with anything that I talk about, I always like to do it for reals, because there's no point talking about things and doing things and saying, oh yes, do this thing and this thing happens, without me actually trying it. So I feel like there's a 120-day challenge coming. I don't know what yet, but I definitely am applying this principle right now to my business, and making sure that something is being done every day towards whatever it is. Because even though we may even have these goals at the end of these 120 days, I like to really sort of leave it open. I guess there are certain things that we want to achieve and things that we are working towards, but if we can create something that is a possibility, or something that we desire, or something that we want, then move towards it, whatever, but allow the universe to give us whatever it thinks is what we really desire, and see what unfolds. Because there's so much mystery in it. And I know this is the opposite of what people tell you when you're trying to manifest things, and when you're trying to work towards your goals. It's, okay, I'm focusing on this, and this is the thing that I want, and this is the way that I'm going to do it, and I'm going to use these steps. And yes, we can do that, but we can also give it that open-ended realm of possible outcomes based on that original desire. And then it's in that letting go of the expected outcome that creates a possibility of so many new outcomes. And it sounds a little bit backwards and a little bit sort of, that makes no sense. And it does. And it's something that it has allowed me more to be able to create more things that I want, because I'm not giving it a finite answer. I'm not saying I want this business and I want it to look exactly like this, and that's it. I don't want any variations of that. This is exactly what I want. Instead, it's, I would love to be doing this every day. I would love to be helping people do this. I would love to be earning this much money. I really enjoy doing these things. How can we create that in a way that works for me and works for others, and exist in this reality that I'm in right now, and just allow the things to unfold, and allow our own intuition and our own nudges to drive us towards whatever it is that is starting to create itself. Because we still need to listen to those thoughts and ideas and those nudges, and do those things in order to create the things that we really want. But if we can then just add that layer of giving it, okay, 120 days, things generate. Let's give it 120 days, and let's see what we can create. So if you're interested in trying something like that, just think of something. Think of one thing that you can do for 120 days. And I know, like, even to me, listening to 120 days is like, oh my God, 120 days. But if you can make it so small that eventually it's going to turn into something else, and it's not going to feel like a chore. It's not like something that you to do or else. And then reflect back, go back once those 120 days are up and go, so I was here and now I'm here. What's changed? See if you want to do it again. But what that does is, anyway, it's still going to create some sort of pattern. It's still going to create that new idea and that new way to allow your desires to come through and give you more meaning to work towards those things that you do really want. Okay, guys, I'll see you next week. And that's it for another epic dose of Disruptors Illuminate Your Frequency podcast.